The ocean was calm. No wind, no noise. But beneath me, something was breathing. And when I put my ear to the sand, it breathed back. I went camping alone last fall on a stretch of remote coastline in Northern California. A friend had told me about this beach, said it was quiet, hidden, basically untouched. No cell service, no crowds. Exactly what I needed after a pretty rough couple of months. I parked my car off a dirt road and hiked down a narrow trail until I reached the beach. There was no one around for miles. Just driftwood, cliffs, sand, and the Pacific stretching out forever. It felt peaceful, almost too peaceful. I set up my tent on the dry part of the sand, just above the tide line. As the sun went down, the sky lit up with orange and purple. And once it got dark, the stars came out. No light pollution at all. You could see everything. But I couldn't sleep. I was lying there in my tent, listening to the waves roll in and out. They were quiet, almost like slow breathing. The wind had completely died down. That's when I started to hear something else. At first I thought it was my imagination. But the longer I stayed still, the more I realized it wasn't the waves. It was breathing. Deep and slow. Rhythmic. I even held my breath to see if it was just me. It wasn't. It kept going, inhale, exhale. It sounded like it was coming from beneath me. I sat up, unzipped the tent, stepped outside barefoot. The sand was cold, but I barely noticed. I crouched down and listened. Still breathing. Still right beneath me. I got down on my knees and pressed my ear to the sand, and that's when I felt it. The sand actually moved, subtly, but enough that I could feel it rising and falling. Something under there was breathing, and it was big. I jumped back, my heart pounding. I didn't know what to do. I just sat there staring at the ground. Then everything stopped. No breathing, no waves, no wind. Like the entire beach had suddenly gone still. And right in front of me, the sand shifted just slightly. Like something had turned over. That broke me. I bolted, left my tent, my flashlight, everything. I ran up the trail in the dark, stumbling over roots, scraping my legs on brush. I thought I could hear the sand moving behind me like something was crawling or dragging itself along, but I didn't dare look back. When I finally got to my car, I locked the doors, started it, and drove. Didn't even know where I was going, just away. I ended up at a gas station almost 30 miles inland. Sat there in the parking lot for an hour, trying to calm down. I told myself I must have imagined it. Sleep deprivation, wind, paranoia. But something didn't sit right. The next day I went back. Part of me wanted to believe I overreacted. Part of me needed to know. My tent was there flattened, a little soggy but untouched. I walked down to the same spot. The beach looked normal, no holes, no signs of anything strange. But then I found it. A round impression in the sand, about the size of a manhole cover, slightly sunken in, like something had once been lying there. I stepped closer, and I swear just for a second, I felt warm air brush against my ankle. Like a breath, that was enough. I packed up my tent and left for good. I tried looking up anything I could find about that area. Legends, geological weirdness, anything. Found a couple of old forum posts. One guy said he used to fish there but stopped after hearing breathing from the cliffs. Another post mentioned odd tremors at night, but it was vague and the account was deleted. I haven't been back since. But some nights, especially when it's quiet, I swear I still hear that sound, that slow, deep breathing. I can't help but wonder if whatever it was followed me. The beach was completely empty when I went for my morning jog, except for one trail of barefoot prints heading straight into the waves, and not a single one coming back. I live near a quiet stretch of coastline in Oregon, where the sand is dark and the sky is usually gray. It is peaceful, even a little haunting at times. That is why I like to run early in the mornings before the sun fully rises and before the tourists arrive. That morning was especially still, the kind of still where even the birds seemed to hold their breath. The tide was out, leaving the beach wide and flat. Fog hung low over the ocean, and the only sound was the crunch of my shoes on damp sand. About 20 minutes into my jog, I noticed something strange ahead. A line of footprints in the sand bare feet, one after the other, small and spaced close together. They looked fresh. The edges were still crisp. At first, I thought maybe another early jogger had beaten me to the beach. But there were no other sets of prints. Just one trail, No dog. No shoes discarded nearby. No bicycle tracks. I slowed down, following them with my eyes. The trail went straight toward the water, not at an angle, not like someone was walking along the shore, but directly out to sea. Then they just stopped, right where the water met the sand. There were no returning prints, no sign of a splash, no disturbed sand. Just the last two footprints, side by side, like the person had walked into the waves and vanished. I stood there for a while, listening, hoping I would hear someone swimming. Maybe laughing, maybe calling out, but there was nothing. Just the soft hiss of the ocean and the distant call of gulls. I stepped closer. The water lapped around my ankles, cold and biting. I scanned the surf, heart starting to race. Maybe someone was in trouble. Maybe they had been pulled under, I shouted. No answer. Looked back. The footprints were still there behind me, perfectly intact. I pulled out my phone and called the non-emergency line. I told them what I found. They said they would send someone to check and to stay nearby. While I waited, I walked back and forth, trying to make sense of it. Something was bothering me more than I wanted to admit. The spacing of the prints, they were too uniform, too exact. Like each step had been placed carefully, deliberately, and the feet were small. It's like a child's. That is when I noticed something else. Just a little further down the beach, half buried in seaweed, was a small object. I jogged over and knelt down. It was a stuffed animal, a rabbit, soaked and matted from the surf. One button I was missing, and its fabric was torn at the seams. I picked it up without thinking, and as soon as I did, I heard something like a whisper carried on the wind. A single word I could not quite catch. I spun around. No one was there. The fog had thickened. I could barely see the trail of footprints now, but I could still hear the ocean and something else. A soft slapping sound like wet feet on sand, but not coming from the water. From behind me, I turned. Nothing, just more beach. But the footprints, they were different now. There were more of them. Another set coming from the dunes behind me, meeting the originals halfway, like someone else had followed or caught up. The second trail stopped right beside the original set, then both disappeared. I dropped the stuffed animal and backed away. By the time the officer arrived, the fog was so thick you could barely see 10 feet ahead. I tried to show him the prints, but they were gone. The tide had washed over everything. I told him about the stuffed rabbit. It was gone too. He was polite but clearly skeptical. Told me I probably saw old tracks that washed strangely in the tide. That maybe I was imagining things in the fog, but I know what I saw. And since then, every time I run that stretch of beach, I feel watched. Not by something in the dunes, not by something in the ocean, but by whatever left those perfect footprints. Because some mornings, I see them again. Fresh, crisp, always leading into the water, never coming back, sometimes when I stop to look. I find a trail of my own footprints I do not remember leading out from the dunes, and stopping right next to them. Like I had walked out to meet someone, like I am meant to follow. And one day I might. But I know this: if I do, I will not be coming back either. I was snorkeling off a quiet beach when I saw a man underwater staring up at me. He was not moving, and he was smiling. I booked the trip to escape. That is what I told myself. I had been working non-stop, mentally fried, no real vacation in over 2 years. Friends suggested the Philippines' peaceful beaches, clear water, cheap food. I went alone. I needed time away from the city, from people. The first few days were perfect. No deadlines, no notifications, just me and the waves. By the fourth morning, I was itching to explore somewhere less touristy. One of the hotel staff told me about a hidden cove a little over an hour away. Barely marked on maps, locals used to fish there, but now no one really goes anymore. That was exactly what I wanted. I rented a scooter, packed my snorkel gear, and headed off without telling anyone where I was going. The road was winding and half broken in places, surrounded by jungle. But eventually I found the beach. It was beautiful, pristine, untouched, no footprints in the sand, no umbrellas, no lifeguards. I dropped my stuff under a tree, put on my fins, and walked into the water. The water was warm. Crystal clear. I floated face down, completely still, watching the world below move without me. Schools of tiny fish, colorful coral. Everything peaceful, perfect, then something caught my eye, a dark shape farther out. I assumed it was a rock or some large coral, but it had a shape, a vertical shape. It looked like a person. I lifted my head out of the water, expecting to see someone swimming. But the ocean surface was empty, silent, except for the waves I dipped back under. And the figure was closer. I froze, my body tensed, because it was not floating, it was standing. Feet on the ocean floor, arms by its side, staring straight up at me. It was a man, bald, gray skin, eyes wide, mouth stretched into a smile that felt too wide, too forced. He was smiling, he was not moving, not blinking, not breathing. I felt my chest tighten, my breath caught in my throat. I scrambled back, kicking at the water, breaking the surface in a panic. The sky was cloudless, waves calm, but my heart was pounding. I turned back toward shore, and my blood ran cold. The man, that same man, was now standing on the sand, motionless, same posture, same sick smile. There was no splash, no sound of him exiting the water. He had just appeared. I shouted, I do not know why, maybe to scare him off, maybe hoping he was just some prankster, but he did not move. He just stood there. Watching, I swam as fast as I could, my limbs shaking salt water, stinging my eyes. By the time I reached the beach, he was gone. No footprints, no movement in the trees. Just silence. I grabbed my things, threw them into my bag, and ran to the scooter. I did not even dry off. The whole ride back, I kept checking my mirror, expecting to see him behind me. At night at the hotel, I locked the balcony door, double-checked it, pushed the chair against it, and yet when I woke up the next morning, there was sand on the floor, wet footprints leading from the balcony to the bed. I checked the lock. It was still latched. I wanted to leave, but my flight was not until 2 days later. I told myself it was a nightmare, a hallucination. Maybe I hit my head. Maybe it was heat stroke. But then I found the camera, a cheap disposable waterproof camera I had brought for fun. I had snapped a few shots underwater without thinking much. I had not developed them until I got home there, and one of the prints was the man. Faint, blurry, standing behind a curtain of bubbles, just visible in the distance, staring up at me with that same smile, and behind him, if you looked closely, were others. Not as clear, not as defined, but there were more shapes, more faces. Just watching, I threw the photo away, burned the rest, but the image, it is still in my head. It has been weeks since I got back, but sometimes when I am in the shower, I get this sensation like I am being watched. Last night, it rained, and as I lay in bed, trying to fall asleep, I heard something not loud, just a soft sound like fingernails tapping on the glass. Slow, rhythmic, not knocking, just waiting. I checked the window. Nothing there, but on the glass was a single wet handprint. I do not go near water anymore. No pools, no beaches, no lakes, not even the tub, because I know he is still out there, still watching, still smiling.